Welcome to the Kung Fu Mama Show. Today we have Dr. Christopher P. Brown. He's a former preschool, kindergarten, and first grade teacher. He is also an award-winning researcher, teacher, educator, and professor of early childhood education in the Department of Educational Leadership and Policy at the University of Texas at Austin. Hello, Chris. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. It'll be great.
Yes, I'm so excited to speak with you. As you know, I'm very passionate about early childhood education. And I also have two early childhood kids, early developing kids.
Fun age.
Yes, exactly. So you left the public classroom to pursue your PhD.
Yes.
And was there a specific incident that finally pushed you in that direction, or was it a general dissatisfaction? Break it down for us.
Oh, it was a range of things. Part of it was my own training. I wasn't a teacher education major as my undergrad. I actually majored in philosophy. So I did my master's degree plus my teaching licensure. And I was fortunate enough to work with several professors at New Mexico State to do research. So I had an idea what it was like to teach and do research at the same time, which I found interesting. But what really got me out of the classroom, I was teaching in Maryland and Virginia. I taught first grade in Maryland and kindergarten in Virginia for a couple of years. And there's a couple of things that happened, and I'll try to go quick. One was when, as teachers, you do a lot of professional development. And I was finding all the professional development we were doing focused on what the kids were doing in the upper grades on the standardized tests. So what was happening third, fourth, and fifth was dictating what I was doing in first and kindergarten, which didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Secondly, when I taught in Virginia, we had to give a phonological awareness and literacy screener every year at the beginning and end of the school year. And it was really hard to do that, I felt like, to our 5-year-olds, particularly when they came into the classroom at the beginning of the year and we made them do a test that they didn't understand how it worked or what was going on. And then at the end of the school year, they were taking the test again, and we had worked all year long to build this community of learners where we all felt supported and we could take care of each other or support each other if we got stuck. And I couldn't help them. And I just felt like I was doing them a disservice about what learning is all about. And then lastly, my last year of teaching kindergarten, play was being pushed out. It was being much more focused on academics. So in my school, we were lucky the principal trusted us enough to still let us do certain play-based activities. But a lot of my colleagues at other schools were getting rid of dramatic play. They were trying to sneak things in where the principal wouldn't see them. I thought, this is all crazy. All we're focused on is our standards. And we're not thinking about the children. So I decided to go back and do my PhD at Wisconsin. And I had the pleasure of working with Beth Rao up there, who was really interested in school readiness. And I was going to think about, well, how are these policies being put in place and making teachers do these crazy things that don't match the kids in the classroom?
Amazing.
It's a lot, I know. Sorry.
That is a lot. No, but I mean, that's just been that's an entire systemic problem.
It is. No, I think you're right. I think there's a lot of things happening in schools where, as a parent or teachers or kids themselves, they really don't have a lot of choice of what they're doing. And then that's all we know about learning and how people learn and what they need to have to be successful in learning. We're not doing those things. And that's what drives me crazy as a researcher.
Mm-hmm. I totally understand. So this led you to want to share this information, I assume, which led you to your first book, Ready for Kindergarten.
Yes, that's part of it. Yes, for sure. The other part was my brother. Actually, my niece is 7 now, and I had actually started this book a while ago and I put it down. I didn't think it would be helpful. I felt like parents knew all this stuff. And my niece is now in 2nd grade, but when she was in kindergarten, it was a rough year for her and her family because of all the things that have changed in kindergarten. And I felt like, well, this is a good reason why I should write this book so that I can not only support my brother, but support everybody who might be having struggles with, thinking about getting their child ready for kindergarten and then themselves as parents being ready for what's going to happen when they get into kindergarten.
Okay. So can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Sure. So the idea behind the book is to help parents feel confident and comfortable in sending their child to kindergarten whenever they decide to do that. And so in the book, I talk about this idea of the readiness trap. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of societal pressure as well as policy and school pressure on parents, making sure that their kids are ready for school. And when we talk about readiness, that's a really messy term with all these different ideas behind it. And in the book, I give several different anecdotal stories. And one of them in the first chapter actually talks about this mother we met many years ago when we were eating out for dinner. And she asked us how old our middle child was. She was 3 at the time. And we told her the age. She goes, so when's her birthday? And we said, it's in October. She said, oh, my son's 3 as well, who was sitting with her, but he was born in the summer and he has an unlucky birthday. And I was a little bit taken back what she meant by that. She goes, well, and we live in Texas. You have to be born before September 1st to enter kindergarten. And she knew that because Vivi was born in October, she'd have almost a whole year before she'd enter kindergarten, where she was told her son may not be ready because he's going to be younger in the classroom. And in my mind, that's a real big misconception of what readiness is all about. But there's also the pressure, as we were talking about at the beginning, teachers feel like they have to have kids performing at a certain level. So they want kids to have as much experience as they can before they get into the kindergarten classroom. But there's also parents, at least in the US context, who think about sports and how old their kids are going to be when they're in high school. So that's another reason they think about keeping kids out of school. So there are all these different things going on at the time. And I feel like we need to talk about what this all means and what do we know about this and how can we make good decisions as parents, and then how can we get ready to go into kindergarten. So that's what the book does. It talks about, where this idea of readiness comes from, what do we know from the research perspective, and then as parents, this is what the change kindergarten looks like, and here's some things you can do to help support your child as he or she enters it.
You know what I love is that your background is you actually are former preschool and kindergarten teacher and first grade teacher. There's a lot of times that there's the research and then there's the actual teachers and they're just not matching up. And so
And I think that's a really good point, because I think everybody wants kids to succeed in school. Teachers, policymakers, parents. It's just we have these different ideas and we aren't talking to each other. Or we're letting things that aren't as important. Sometimes research studies are missing some things that are really important within classroom context. And unless you've been in there as a teacher or as a parent or as a student, you're not going to know that. So I think it is really important to have research that's done by people who actually been in those contexts, know the pressure that teachers are under, know the pressure that you as a parent are under, and know what it's like to be a kid in that context where, a 5-year-old is still really trying to figure out how the world works and see him or herself as a learner. And if we make it a high stress place, it's just not going to make them want to be in school or do well in school. So that's something I just, I'm always thinking about how can we support everybody within this context, but to do it in a way where we all feel successful so that we can go forward.
I totally agree. All right. So the research and the actual teachers in the school. So how can we tell if our child is ready for kindergarten as parents?
There's no easy answer to that question or a simple formula. I think it's a very complex thing that's going on. I think if you're having doubts as a parent, if your child's in preschool or if you have friends who have had kids that go through school, you may want to talk to those folks first just to get a sense of what they're thinking about what kids need to be successful in school. But things to think about as a parent as you're getting your child ready for elementary school and kindergarten, emotionally, is your child comfortable with that transition from you to someone else? Can they handle that? I know the beginning of school can be strenuous for everybody, but eventually they're going to need to be able to separate from you and be able to go into the classroom and do their own thing. So if they've never had experiences of going into preschool, which some families haven't, and that's perfectly fine, you have to think about have they had other experiences and how have they reacted to that? Can your child, manage and take care of themselves? Because when a child goes into an elementary school classroom, a kindergarten classroom, they're one of at least 20 usually with one adult. So they have to be able to manage themselves in some way and let people know what their needs are when they're there within that process. And they also need to be able to self-soothe. If if there's a mistake or something, how can they take care of themselves, get themselves back up and move forward? Also knowing how to interact with other kids is really important. Making friends is a part of the process of going to school. So giving them some social opportunities prior to any kindergarten is really important. And then there's also the academic side. So as a parent, trying to make learning a fun and exciting experience for kids, reading to them on a regular basis, talking about things as they're happening, counting with them, singing silly songs, doing rhyming, lots of language-based exercises, and giving them opportunities also to use their fine motor skills, because in kindergarten, there's a lot of, you begin to write and cut. So building those muscles, creating things at home, giving them opportunities to play with Play-Doh, all that stuff is really important. But I think one thing you have to remember, one thing I want to advocate for in this book, as a parent, you know your child best. And so when you're thinking about what it means to be ready for kindergarten, do you feel like, and depending on the context you're in, your child can handle that transition of going into a place where they're going to be one of many, they're going to be in an environment where they're going to be asked to do a lot of things. How are they going to respond to that? Are they able to take care of themselves across the day? And if they aren't, you feel like there's some struggles there, we're trying to find some opportunities for do that. Playing sports is a great way to get to interact with other kids now they're adults. Mm-hmm. If you're a religious person, doing things through your church might be a way to do that, whatever it may be. But there's lots of different ways out there for kids to get engaged. Having play dates. I don't know what you all do in Taipei, but play dates are a big thing in the US, things like that. Yeah. Just, getting the child out there to engage. And then as a parent, when you're doing learning activities or academic activities, making it fun and exciting, and trying not to overwhelm your child. I think sometimes parents feel like they have to force all these things on kids, and that can be, I wouldn't say damaging, but it can be frustrating for the child, which becomes frustrating for you. And then you're in this negative cycle, and you want to try to avoid that. Learning should be fun. And your child should start to develop the skills of like, this is how we learn, this is how we engage in things. And I have the skills and knowledge to do that. You want them to see themselves as learners as they go forward.
That was a lot. That was a lot. So parents, make sure before you listen to this podcast, have your pens and pencils ready.
This is not a checklist. I don't want to make that. The other thing I worry about is there are companies that send out readiness tests and things like that. And I'm just going to say that's fine if you want to use those things. I'm not a big fan of them because they make you feel guilty as a parent, and they make you nervous as a parent. What I'm trying to do with this book is make you feel more confident as a parent, because you do have this. You know what you're doing. You know your child best. How can you support him or her to move forward within this process? So when it's fine if you want to make a list, but it's just if you think logically about what it means to go into school, providing those types of experiences, I think could really help you as a parent.
So is there anything that parents should be looking out for on the kindergarten side? So when they look for a kindergarten, or are they, I know in the States, it's a
little different. Yeah.
It's different. So it's, I mean, based on your neighborhood.
Right? It's where you live typically. I know in Taipei, there's a lot more private. Kindergarten is typically a private enterprise, isn't it?
No, there's also public as well.
Oh, there is. Okay. I apologize. Yes. I think for me, the biggest thing when I look for a school, there's two things I look at. Are the teachers happy? Do they seem like they want to be there? And are the kids happy? I mean, I know that sounds silly, but you don't want to send your child to a school environment where everybody's stressed out. And so, particularly in kindergarten should be a fun, exciting, engaging time for everybody. I know teachers can have bad days, but do you feel like it's a place where teachers are treated as professionals and they have good relationships with their students? And do the kids that go there seem like they want to keep coming back and be a part of that environment? I think that if there's other things you're looking for, that's going to be up to you as an individual. Some parents want places where there's a lot of play versus some parents want places that focus more on academics. Either one's fine. I think you just have to think about what you want for your child. I will say children are only little once, and so we need to encourage and support what they want to do at that age so that they want to be a part of school, and see it as a lifelong process for them.
Definitely. So you also wrote a second book,
yes,
Resisting the Kinder Race. What exactly is the Kinder Race?
So I did a different book. That's an academic book I wrote for more teacher educators and teachers and practitioners. And it's from a study I did around what I call the changed kindergarten, or, people have been talking about that for a while. And it comes from a quote, actually, of talking to a kindergarten teacher. And she said, kindergarten's become a place where we race kids from skill to skill. And so what she means in that quote is that all they're doing is teaching kids a series of academic skills to get them ready for the tests that are in the later grades. And that's not what she wants kindergarten to be. So in the book, I talk about how kindergarten's changed, what the kindergarten classroom I was in looked like, and how I shared a video with other stakeholders in Texas and West Virginia and at the national level to get their perspectives on what they think is happening in this environment, and do they agree with it? And if not, how might we change it? And so that's where that title comes from. It's just thinking about how can we refocus kindergarten back on supporting children as learners so that they can grow and develop in a way where they see themselves as learners, rather than just simply create these environments where we are racing kids from skill to skill to skill. And there's a lot of research that shows in the US context, a lot of kindergarten classrooms are places where teachers are simply feeding students information, not giving them any chance to have choice or voice in their learning. And they are racing from skill to skill. So any interactions they have are either just talking about the skill at hand or correcting kids to make sure they're doing what they're told. So that opportunity to create a loving, caring, nurturing environment, which teachers do still try to do, is much more difficult because all they're told to do this and this and this and this all day long.
And how can educators that are in kindergarten or first grade, maybe they feel the same pressures that you did as well? How can they? Do they have a way to help change your situation? Has it changed, or is it the same? And what happens in that situation?
Well, I think there's a couple things, and it's really hard. Teachers have a very hard job, and I hope I haven't spoken in any disparaging ways towards teachers. That's not my intention at all. I think one, looking for allies within your school to help start conversations around what should be happening in the classroom. Two, if you can find like-minded folks, talking with your administrators. Principals want to know why you do what you do and how's it going to support learning. And there's a lot of research showing, more child-centered activities do actually help kids see themselves as learners and help them be successful in literacy and mathematics. And then also as teachers, and this is a hard thing to do, is to reach out to families. If you can get families on your side, they're willing to support you, and talk with administrators and people within your district about what they want to take place. I was very lucky when I taught kindergarten. I had a really good rapport with the families I worked with, and they were on my side. I had parents write letters to the principal at the end of the school year, what a wonderful year they had, so that the principal trusted me. When I said I want to do this in my classroom, I have the support, and the kids were being successful within that process. So being able as a teacher to document what you do, why you do, in a way that shows these opportunities are going to help push kids forwards, I think is really important. But teachers, they have a lot of pressure, and it's unfortunate that we expect so much and give them so little support in so many different ways.
And how can the parents support their teachers in that respect so that they have a successful year?
I think that's a great question. I think one thing they can do is to let teachers know that they're there and they want to help out. And when they say they want to help out, I think it's really important to say they're there to support the class, not just their child. I think a lot of teachers are sometimes wary because parents come in saying they want to support the classroom, and all they do is focus in on their child. And that's hard because you're trying to build a learning community. So letting teachers know that you're there to support them, offering to come in and volunteer, or if I had a good friend of mine, they would ask the teacher to send things home because they worked all the time, but they could help cut things out for the teacher or sort things that, take 10 or 15 minutes out of the teacher's day. And so when they send it in, she doesn't have to worry about it. He doesn't have to worry about it. And I think also being an advocate within the school context for that teacher, letting the principal know, letting if there's a parent-teacher association of some sort, letting them know these are things that we need to be doing to help support our teachers. And I think that makes it much easier. I worry a lot of the homeschool connections, and there's research that shows this. It's usually around incidents that go badly, like the child did something or the teacher's parents upset, rather than starting on a positive note, going in and, saying, I'm here to support you. I want to have a good relationship with you. Let's talk. I'm always available. As a parent, the teacher's not always available, that's for sure. But keeping that positive relationship open, I think, is really important. Alison Gopnik talks about the idea that childhood is the research and development of the human existence. It's where kids figure out how the world works. They get to experiment and play. They start to develop their taste. They start to see how the world operates behind them. And early childhood is a space where we want to give kids as many opportunities as we can so they can start to make sense of the complexity of this world they're inheriting and how they can engage with it in ways that help them feel successful, that help them feel confident. And early childhood is such an important time where giving them that access to opportunity, they start to bring that into who they are as a person as well as who they are as a learner. And all it does is multiply as they get older. So the more experiences they have, the more they become more confident, the more they develop the skills they need. And then they can go on and accomplish more and more and more and more as they go forward. So if kids aren't given a lot of language, literacy, math, sensory, play, physical activities, they need to have that. So it starts later and everything gets pushed back. So when we offer those opportunities early, it gives them more opportunity to grow and succeed by the time they get into high school, by the time if they go to university and beyond. And we should do it because we care about kids. I'm just going to be honest. This is the future. And these are the people that are going to be running whatever nation you live in 30 years. So why aren't we supporting them? Why aren't we making sure they have a wonderful experience so that they want to do that for the next generation? And we just keep moving forward that way.
And on that note, children are the future. Why not care about the kids? Why not?
I know. Only if they could vote.
Amazing. Definitely. I mean, it's the single most important time in their life because they're developing so fast, right?
Yeah. And they're gaining so many skills so quickly. And the skills they're gaining are not easy skills. I know we as adults can read and we see it as being easy, but that takes a lot of cognitive, focus and power and room in your brain. And so we have to recognize that these are big things we're asking them to do. So we do need to give them, when I talk about the kinder race especially, they need to have some breaks. They need to have time to let go, because even as adults, I don't know if you can see behind me, there's a guitar. I'm just learning how to play guitar and it's frustrating. But I can take a break because I'm an adult and I can walk away. We need to do the same for kids as well. So that they see learning as an opportunity that keeps, the more you do, the better you get at it. But you don't need to do it all at once. You need to have some space in between to be a kid or to be an adult, whatever it may be.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing with us your struggles and all your knowledge and all.
Happy to do so. It's been great to have this conversation. I hope it was helpful.
Yes, I hope it was very helpful for our listeners as well. And how do we find you and how do we find your book?
So the book's on Amazon. If you type in Christopher P. Brown, P is for Pierce, my middle name, it'll come up with the other stuff that I've written. If you go to the University of Texas website, utexas.edu, and type in my name, my webpage will come up. I have a webpage, ChristopherPBrown.com. You can find me there as well.
Okay.
So there's lots of different places.
Okay. So if you have any questions, also look for Dr. Christopher Brown, buy his book, and also don't forget to follow at Kung Fu Mama Show on Facebook, IG, and then check out our YouTube channel at Starring Sarah Chang. Thanks so much for listening today.
Thank you.